Good morning. I am Martina, Head of Marketing at Qualibrate. Thank you all for joining this webinar. Today we will show you how to minimize the risk and reduce the implementation resources while going through an SAP transformation journey. As first thing, we want to express our wish that everyone is doing well and your families are safe too. The last few weeks have presented all of us with a truly unique life situation. We feel for our colleagues, customers, partners, and users, and the impact on their families. On our side, we keep engaging with our users on digital channels as much as possible, like this webinar. We've always done it, but even more now, we believe in the power of stay connected, even if it's just virtually. So because of the change of circumstances, Alan would take the lead today instead of Stephen, as he's currently stranded in a lockdown country. Alan Jimenez is the Qualibrate director. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you.
Today he will guide us through the concept behind Qualibrate first, then he will dive straight into a live demo of the main functionalities. Just a quick technical note, you're all on mute. You can use the Q&A button below to write any question anytime. We will try to answer all of them in the 15-minute session that we have at the end. Today, we also want to make the demo interactive. So during the demo, Alan will stop for a few times. You can raise your hand using the button below next to the one Q&A. We will unmute you and you can address your questions live about the specific features Alan just demoed. But before we start, one thing I need from you. I guess you can see a poll on your screen. So I'd like you to reply to the question that you see it. We want to know if you already do end-to-end regression testing on your ERP business processes. These will help us to customize the demo even more. So if you can submit your question, then I'm going to show you the results. Okay, cool. So this is the results. So mainly the majority of you is doing it manually. Some of you have already other automated tools. And then one planning to do that in the future. Thanks for it. Alan, let's get into the demo. I'll let you do it.
Thank you very much, Martina. And welcome everyone to the Qualibrate webinar for the SAP Digital Transformation Solutions. My name is Alan Jimenez. So as Martina was saying, I would like to extend to everyone that I hope that everyone's doing well and that your families are safe and healthy. So today, I would like to take you through a bit of an introduction of ourselves and of myself as well. Then I would like to explain you what is our value proposition and how do we try to position Qualibrate to help customers that are engaging into digital transformation initiatives. This is not only specific to SAP, but anyone that is trying to implement more efficiencies in their ways of working digitally. And then I'm going to take you through an interactive demonstration. Like Martina said, I would like to make sure that I can interact with the audience, and if there are any questions specific to the features and to the live demonstration that I'm going to be showing to you, then I would like to really engage with you and try to resolve those questions as we go, and if time allows, of course. Towards the end, we are going to open a Q&A session. So if there are any general questions about not only ourselves, but the solution and any other type of questions that we might answer, then we can do that. Now, today, I'm not going to focus too much on going through slides. I really want to focus on the product and the solutions that we bring to help customers in digital transformation. But before we do that, I would like to explain where we come from. I myself, I come all the way from Mexico. My background is on software engineering, and actually I've been working on the quality assurance and testing domain for about 15 years already. And the group of people, I actually joined IOVIO, which is a group of people that have a lot of experience in the same domain here in the Netherlands. We're a Dutch-based company. And our primary focus for the past few years is that we want to help customers to implement quality assurance and testing practice. So we are a very niche organization that focuses only on quality assurance and testing, application lifecycle management, and DevOps. And throughout our journey, we have been very fortunate to work with top 500 companies around the globe, and primarily also helping SAP customers on implement SAP applications on their business landscape. And one of the things that we were highly recognized to in the past is that we have been helping those organizations to implement a strong and resilient test automation capabilities within their teams. And one of the things that we do is that we try to look at the market, try to look at solutions that are available in the market, and depending on the customer setup, we will implement the best solution that fits the purpose for that specific implementation. So naturally, what that means is that we are in the seek for modern solutions that can help organize the testing process much more efficiently and can help the organization's teams to be more effective and quicker. The ultimate goal for our customers is to ensure quality throughout their software implementation journey, but also to make them more agile so they can release functionality to production in a faster way. Now, one of the things that we were very fortunate to do is that we have a team of very highly skilled individuals, especially from a technical perspective. And throughout our experience of implementing several modern tools available in the market, we came to the, let's say, to the conclusion that we could simplify a lot of things and to make test automation more accessible for not only technical users, but also business users like business analysts and functional analysts. So with the help of some customers, we prototyped a solution, which eventually became a product in itself. And that's how Qualibrate came into the picture. So essentially, Qualibrate is just the result of productized years of consulting experience that we have implemented in global customers in different industries. We launched Qualibrate in 2016 for the first time. One of our first customers was AkzoNobel and Tommy Hilfiger. And since then, we have been fortunate to have proven the value of enabling software quality while making the software delivery much more agile and release to production at higher speeds. So we have been working with customers in different industries like aviation, military, fashion, government institutions, manufacturing, food industry, and many others. And in any of these industries, we have learned a lot on the specifics of the industry and the sectors. And we have tried to build best practices around those customers so we can offer a fully, let's say, ready solution for any type of customer that might be interested in implementing test automation on their own teams. So that was a bit of background of who we are. The reality is that we're trying to bring all that experience that we have accumulated throughout the years and try to put together a solution that can actually help teams to deliver software faster. So before I jump into the demonstration, I'm going to explain where exactly do we bring value, because as much as we started developing a test automation solution, we came to a concept that we believe that actually adds a lot of value to the entire delivery lifecycle of software and applications. Now, to take you through that process, what we have recognized in all of the implementations that we have done in the past, not only with Qualibrate, but also with other platforms, is that if we look at a traditional approach of how customers implement transformation initiatives within their organizations, is that they will put together a project team, they will put a budget, they will put a timeline, and then this project team will be responsible of producing not only the applications that they need to build for specific business objectives, but also they need to take care of certain deliverables. Now, if we look at the simple, let's say, simplistic view of how these deliverables occur throughout the life cycle of a program, it all starts with putting together a team that will primarily take care of documenting how the application will look like. So this takes shape into a high-level process documentation exercise. So people like business analysts or business process owners will try to design how the system will work from a business standpoint, right? So if we look at SAP implementations, this is typically done by the business process layer. And this team will be responsible for producing documentation and also perhaps doing a high-level blueprinting of how the system will work. And typically what you see in SAP implementations is that you can use tools like ARIS or SAP Solution Manager blueprinting to be able to define the way the system will work. Eventually, you will identify those business processes, and depending on the strategy that you're going to be using for your rollout, some customers we see that they adopt a country rollout process, so they roll out functionality in a specific countries in different ways. So you will prioritize those business processes and the respective localizations, and then you will have to put together another team, which is a testing team normally, which will interpret those business documents, and they will create manual test specifications out of those documents. Normally, what you see is that also business analysts will take some sort of responsibility on putting together these documents, but also you need a different skill set, like a test analysis skill set, to be able to create this type of documentation. And again, this is a separate deliverable that can be built in solutions like Word, Excel, or maybe you have other tools available in the market as well for storing manual testing assets. If you are interested in also automating, let's say, the most critical business processes, especially if you're going to adopt an interactive rollout, regression testing becomes ever important. That means that you will have to bring expertise, whether prepare internal expertise in your team or outsource the expertise to different companies. And then you will have to purchase another solution, so you are able to create automated test scripts that are stored in a completely different format. And this responsibility normally falls into a quality assurance test engineer type of role. And again, like I mentioned before, they need to create a separate deliverable, stored in a different platform. There are several out there that can help you to automate the manual testing, especially the critical scenarios. But then this is another deliverable that needs to come out from the project. And now that you have actually documented your process, you have done some manual testing on it, and let's imagine that you have everything ready and you have done user acceptance testing. You created your automated test scripts, and then you decide as a project that you can go live and launch the applications into production. Then you need to maintain training materials, because in the end users are going to be using that application. So in some sort of way, the project team has the responsibility to produce user instructions or any type of guidance to the end users, so they know how to use the system. Essentially, in the end, it's not only about launching functionality into production, but also launching something that people can use. Now, if we look at this process and you look beneath the deliverables, the timelines actually tend to extend quite a lot with this, especially because we believe that this process is very highly inefficient. First of all, you need to produce 4 different deliverables that are talking about the business process document and a business process functionality that you're going to be deploying into production. Now, if we look at this from start to finish, and if you do it in one single go, it might be okay. But if you repeat this process for every single iteration that you're going to deploy into your system, then you introduce a lot of overhead into the team. So you're going to add a lot of frustration, especially when we believe that things are going to be changing throughout the life cycle of software. So change for us is inevitable. So this process will be repeated for every single change event. So eventually, this is going to impact your team's psyche, but also the project timelines. And we believe that we can make these things better. So essentially, we look at this very at heart, and this is essentially what the concept of Qualibrate is under the hood. The way we address this is that our approach is to unify all these deliverables into one single unit. Our target is to enable teams to be able to transform the way that they deliver software by making the process documentation process, the manual test case process, creation process, and automated testing process and training process much more efficient. And the way we look at this is that if you are able to create one single deliverable that is updated at all times, we can keep all these different activities in sync at every single change event that occurs into your landscape. So that's essentially what the concept of Qualibrate is. We try to, let's say, make the process of delivering software by unifying all these activities into one single digital document that can be used for different purposes. So essentially, the way Qualibrate works is that we try to empower the people that actually know how the process and test data in the system looks like. So we are also trying to make the test automation activity much more accessible for non-technical roles, because if you look at the solutions that are out there, most of the solutions are really built for test engineers. but we also want to talk in quality terms to non-technical people like business process owners, like functional analysts, etc. So what we're trying to do is to give the right tools to the right people so they are also able to participate in the quality assurance process at earlier stages in the process, right? So essentially, Qualibrate offers a 3-in-1 solution that can help teams to deliver software faster with better quality. So what I'm going to show you right now, it's a live demonstration of how the system works. Like we mentioned before, we want to make the demonstration interactive. So I'm going to stop a couple of times during the demo so you can raise your hand and you can ask specific questions about the features that I just shown, and hopefully you enjoy it. Now, before we do that, we would like to run a second poll because actually the results for the first poll were pretty interesting. I can see that many people were doing manual testing at the moment, so I think this can be very interesting for you. But now we're also launching a second poll, which is focused on the specific challenges that you're facing while trying to do test automation. So we're gonna give a minute so you guys are able to respond. Okay, we see the answers coming in. Let's give a few more moments for the answers to come in. Let's keep it coming, guys. Okay. So what are the main challenges you are facing while trying to implement that test automation practice within your teams? So we see some interesting things in here. Let's give 10 seconds, Martina, so we can give more time for some answers. We have more people coming. Thanks a lot, everyone, for contributing your feedback, by the way.
Okay, I'm going to share the results with you.
Yeah. All right. So these are the results, guys. Well, I think I was kind of expecting this. We see that's exactly what we see in the customers. It's a multi-fold type of challenges of a challenge, of course, when implementing test automation. And this is especially one of the reasons why we define Qualibrate, the concept behind Qualibrate, because it's not only about test automation, but about engaging with the entire project team and providing the right solutions so they are able to cope with this level of challenges. So for instance, lack of process documentation, poor test data available in non-production systems, which is one of the main pain points as well that we recognize. And of course, everything related to the expertise required not only to build the automation assets, but also to maintain them, which is the fourth point. So we are with you guys. We recognize those challenges, and that's one of the reasons we built Qualibrate in the first place. So before, so we can continue, let's go into that demonstration. So I hope you guys can see my screen. I want to show this, our Qualibrate platform, and I'm going to be focusing on how we can help your project teams on producing content as fast as possible in minutes. So that's why we call from weeks to hours in one click. And I'm going to show you also how we can use this for manual testing, automated testing, and learning. So as you can see, I have logged in our demo system, which is a cloud application. And the first thing that you will see is that we have access to different projects. So essentially what this is that the first level of authorization, my user will be assigned to specific projects that can be run in parallel. And in each project, you're going to be storing specific project content. And by content, we mean your business process flows, your business scenarios, and also your test cases and executions and defects. I'm going to go to one of our demo projects, which is the S4 transformation process. And as soon as I log into the project, you will see that we have some modules in here. Let me just refresh this. And we have the dashboards module, which essentially it's self-explanatory. The dashboards module, what it allows us to do is to visualize the progress of everything that is happening within our specific project. So you can track things like statistics for how many flows categorized by owners, how many flows and what their status is at a certain point in time. And all of these are powered by under the hood analytics that we have as part of the Qualibrate service. And it's a real-time analytics platform that really gives as much information to the project users so they know where their project is at a certain point in time. So we support having, let's say, tracking of defects, flows, but also execution trends and all this kind of stuff, which can be very relevant for specific decision making at a certain point in time in the project. One of the things that we also do is that these dashboards are highly customizable. So we bring out of the box dashboards for the users, but we also give the ability to the people that have permissions to be able to create dashboards themselves. So they can also create their own relationships between the different assets available in the project, and you can create visualizations so you can track the progress of a specific activity, like test preparation, test execution, or defect management. Then on the left side, you see that we have other modules like flows and scenarios. And these two specific modules are really important in the concept of Qualibrate, because this is where we try to cope with the challenges of not only making it easy for people to create content within the project, but also to maintain the content. So the flows, essentially what it means is that this is where we store what we call building blocks for your project. So typically on SAP implementations, you will see the SAP transactions or the Fiori applications that are part of your business process. And you will see the typical create sales order, create purchase requisition, and all these building blocks that eventually need to be put together into longer and larger end-to-end scenarios. And this is where the concept of scenarios comes into handy, because in the scenarios module, this is where you will put together all the building blocks into a sequence that actually represent a real business scenario. But in the end, it's where you're going to be using your building blocks to create end-to-end business process tests. Now, if I go back to the flows, you will see that we have already some content loaded into this specific project. So for instance, you can see that we have a total of 13 flows that represent different, let's say, building blocks in the application under test. So we have, for instance, a create purchase requisition flow, which essentially tells you that it creates a purchase requisition. And we have some information in here that it's very handy for the users to know what the state of that flow is. And also we have some classification of that specific flow, which tells the user which, let's say, content bucket this flow pertains to. If I open this specific flow, the create purchase requisition, we go into the actual flow specification. And in this case, this is the first level of deliverable that we have in Qualibrate, which is a digital representation of how your process works. So this is a digital document of the create purchase requisition transaction, so to speak. And one of the things that you will notice is that there is a lot of things that we capture as part of that specific document. So all these lines that you see on each of the columns are called steps. And the columns are basically chapters that help project teams to identify at a very high level what this process is doing. So similar to what you would do in Microsoft Word, if you are documenting a procedure, you will, let's say, organize everything into chapters so it's more readable for any type of user. And on each of the steps, what we see is that we capture a business-friendly description of what the step is doing. By the way, very important, a step in Qualibrate is basically every single interaction that the user performs on the application under test. So for instance, in this case, if I open this step, you can see that we have a more description of the step itself, right? So, and in this specific step, you can see that we add some project information that can be relevant for the project team to know at the specific moment. And we also see on the right side a screenshot of the application under test, but we also, I'm not sure if you can see it here, we also highlight the specific control that the user has interacted with. So we give more visual guidance to the team about what this process is doing. And I can actually navigate back and forth throughout the process, and you can see that we have a very clear audit trail of what the user has performed on the system, right? And this is automatically produced for the user via a recording capability, which I'm going to show very shortly, right? So this is the type of documentation we capture as part of our recording and process capture capabilities. And we try to keep it as easy and flexible as possible to the users so they are able to understand their business process in a simple way. So this is a flow that I have already created in the past, and it really helps us to identify how the purchase requisition transaction works in Fiori. So what I'm going to show you now is how do we produce this information in an easy way, even if you're not a technical type of role. So what I'm going to do right now is that I'm going to create a flow. So I'm going to create an SAP create sales order. webinar. And here you can see that we have the ability to categorize this flow in a specific with the specific metadata, like for instance, the severity. This is rather important for, especially for those teams that are implementing a risk-based testing strategy. So you can actually classify your flow as a critical. So if you're running out of time on a specific testing cycle, you can shortlist your flows and you can focus on the critical ones only. This field is also to track the readiness of a specific flow. So very useful if you're tracking test preparation process. And very important is that this information is immediately reflected in real time in our dashboards module. And lastly, you have the ability to tag this flow, right? This is going to be specific to sales order processing. So you can, what we do with this is that we are adding some reporting dimensions to this flow. So again, if I create a flow with the sales order processing tag, it immediately gets reflected in the dashboards. So I can count the number of flows that are specific to sales order processing. But more importantly, I can do a filtering of a time series report of, for instance, give me all the executions for the last 3 weeks that are specific to the sales order processing tag. So that's very powerful analytics capability behind it. Now that I have created the flow, you can see that we have a blank canvas in the flow, and this is where the user has the ability to either maintain the, let's say, the transaction or the application recording manually, so you can add the steps manually. But in this case, I'm going to show you how to automatically generate that documentation, and the user doesn't have to have too much technical experience to be able to do so. So what I can do is that I click on the recording button, and as soon as I do that, what we do is that we launch a recording capability. You can see it here. It's a recording widget. And this recording widget is the little tool that the user is going to be using while going through the process that they want to capture and they want to put together into the central cloud repository. So one of the things that you will notice is that the recording widget is highly simplified, and we took a conscious decision for that, because if you think about it, the only thing that matters at the moment the most is the actual process and the test data that the user needs to put into the system. Normally, this knowledge resides into the heads of the business analysts or the business process owners. So we want to make the experience as simple as possible for them. So we want to focus on the application as opposed to focus on the automation tool. So we give them a very simplified layer of functionality so they can get through the recording process. And then eventually, if they want to enhance it, we can actually do it in steps as opposed to throw complexity to the user in one go. So the user here can do specific activities, like for instance, add verifications to the application, very important from a testing perspective, to add checkpoints to verify specific data coming from the system. You can add notes like the ones that I showed you before, that you can add descriptions to the steps. You can store data from the system. For example, if I create a sales order that needs to be delivered, I can store the sales order number, and I can create a delivery out of it. And then again, when I hit save, I can basically save my capture into the cloud. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Here is where the user will create the chapters that I showed you before, basically the columns that help you organize the recording in a much more readable way. So now this is where the user will start going through the application on their test. And what you will notice right now is that all the activities that the user is performing on the system in their test are being automatically captured by the recording widget. So just to take you a little bit through it, you can see that the last activity that is being captured is the press enter on SAP. If I expand more details, you can see that we have a little bit more information about the steps. So we keep it hidden, but the user can still expand in it. And I can also navigate back and forth to evaluate what steps have been taken during my recording. So for example, my first step, I basically navigated all the way to the left. My first step is that I connected to a specific SAP system. And you can see here that we automatically parameterize anything that looks like input data or output as well. And I'm going to show you later how we actually create data containers to help us data drive these specific recordings. So I have connected to my SAP system, then I type a user. You can also have the ability here to correct, if necessary, the data, and you can also modify, by the way, the description of the step if you want, but the recorder pretty much does all the heavy lifting for the user. Now, this is where I'm going to change my chapters. So I'm going to create a sales order, and then I'm going to go to my, create sales order transaction. So you will notice that the widget, oh, sorry. So I'm typing all my data. This is where the business user or non-technical user, so to speak, because also testing engineers are able to use this, of course. They will focus on maintaining the data as far as they know how the process works, right? So we can select the materials, we can put the quantities, right? So I hit enter and you can see that the recorder is capturing everything. So I'm gonna do the ref here, 03. So I press enter, hit continue, and then I can hit save. So now I have saved my sales order. You can see that as you know, especially for the SAP people, every time you do a posting into SAP, like saving a sales order, it creates a sales order document. And SAP also gives me either an error warning or a success message that the document has been posted. In this case, it has been successfully posted. And Qualibrate automatically adds verification points at that level. So you can see that I am verifying that the status bar gives me a success message. This is what the S means, because SAP classifies the error messages as E, the warning messages as W, and the success messages as S. So in this case, we have the first level of verification, but of course you can add your own verifications as well. Similarly, this is where it becomes interesting, because now I'm interested to record the standard order that I just created. So I would like to store this information because I want to create a variable. Because eventually I'm going to put this process together with a delivery, so I can dynamically create an order and then put it to a delivery in a second step. So it's very important that I've saved this information from the application under test, and this is where the store capability becomes very handy. So if I hit the store button, you can see that I'm able to select the status bar, and as soon as I click on it, I'm storing my message that it's in the status bar, so I can use this for further processing. Now, this is where it starts to get a bit more interesting, because you start peeling the onion in terms of Qualibrate's functionality. At the moment, you can see that I'm storing the entire text, but more often than not, you will be interested only in the number. So you have ability to drill down into the data to store a specific portion of the text. And this is where we go into the configuration, let's say, window for the specific step. And you can see that by default, we are selecting the text property of that specific status bar. But the user has the ability to also choose which specific attribute they want to focus on, so they can focus only on the number. So if I hover on top of all of these attributes, you can see that we provide a live tooltip of the data that is in the specific attribute. If I select it, you can see that now it's storing only the number, and I can evaluate it. You can see that it's storing the number. This is a live evaluation. So again, I just go to the configuration, I select the right attribute, and we provide help to the user, right? And then when I save, it basically focuses only on the right attribute. And I'm gonna show you in a bit how we can create a variable out of this as well. Now, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna display the sales order now. So I'm gonna do a verification. So VA03. And then here is, let's imagine that I want to open the sales order and I want to verify the net value of that sales order. And very important, because this is where you can start adding checkpoints for your specific business logic that you're developing. Let's imagine that the net value is calculated with a specific pricing condition. So here is where I would use the verify button. And as you can see, when I hit the verify functionality, everything in SAP becomes can become a potential verification point. But in this case, we're interested in this field. So if I click on it, you can see that we have added the verification point, and the expected value is going to be 150. If I maintain my data to create a sales order with 2 materials, then I can change my expected value to 300, right? So that's essentially how it works, and I'm going to show it shortly. So I'm going to log off for now. And then I'm going to hit the save button. So basically what the recorder has been doing is that everything that I recorded in my local machine, now it's being uploaded into my central team repository. And now you can see that everything is organized into the chapters that I just created. And all the steps that I basically, that the recorder captured while I was going through the process are created into our digital process document, which is stored centrally for the user. So people can interact with it. As soon as you do a recording, then you can basically share this link with the team, and they can go and you can collaborate on that process. Doesn't matter if you're talking to test engineers, to process owners, to architects. We try to keep the experience as simple as possible for the user. So I would like to make a quick stop right now to see if anyone has any questions at the moment. So Martina, maybe you can help me if people are raising their hands. Any questions so far?
Yeah, we have a question. We have Ralph Smits. I'm going to allow you
Ralph.
to talk.
Sure.
Cool. Go ahead, with your question. Hello, Ralph.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Rob.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, man.
Okay, thank you. Question, to get it right, the structure, it's the flows, there you're showing really transactions, but the end-to-end process where you're doing the sales order delivery into billing, you can connect those flows into a scenario. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm going to show you that in a few minutes.
Yeah, okay, that's another question. Now we're showing S/4HANA an on-premise application, but is this also possible for cloud application of S/4HANA?
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter where the application is, as long as it's rendered through either an SAP GUI protocol or in the cloud. Normally they deliver the applications through web. So absolutely, we support web applications as well, especially the SAP application stack.
Okay, so and in the flow section, you can create all kinds of flows of different systems, like say Salesforce, CRM, on-premise, cloud.
Exactly.
Okay. That's and another question in the dashboards. That's the last question then. Where can I see the test coverage? Can I see somewhere the test coverage? What I have been tested?
So basically, you can build your own dashboards from a coverage perspective. At the moment, what we can have is what we call the so-called dimensions. So you see these tags that we have here. So these tags could represent your specific business process blueprint layers, and you can assign the different flows to specific tags. So you can see how many flows are assigned to accounts payable, for instance. How many of those flows are passing, how many of those flows are failing. And you can build this, and what you see is what you get approach within the dashboards. Eventually, we're also going to try to build integrations with Solution Manager and Jira, so we can also do coverage for requirement analysis as well.
Yes, okay. Yeah, that was also a question. Is there a possibility to have some sort of integration with Solution Manager? Okay, you're working on that.
Absolutely, yeah, we're working on that, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ralph.
Yep, you're welcome.
We actually have another questions.
Yeah, good. Keep it coming, guys.
So Paul, I'm gonna allow you to talk. Here you go. Hi, Paul. Paul, can you hear us?
Yeah, now I can. Sorry.
Okay, great.
My question is it only working for SAP or also for IBP or other programs? So how does it work?
We don't only work with SAP. Every application that runs in a web browser as well is supported. So like Ralph was mentioning, we support applications like Salesforce, we support applications like Workday, on the SAP stack, of course, Ariba, Hybris, etc. But also custom web applications that you build. So if you have a custom web application for IBP, then we can definitely support that.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Paul. Any other question coming? We actually have few questions in the Q&A, but we'll address them in the end.
Okay, fantastic. Let me continue then, because I'm going to do another moment for a second round of questions. So just to do a bit of a recap, what I did is that I show you how we put together everything into building blocks, and I'm showing you at the moment in your screen the digital document that we produce. And this is basically the creation of your knowledge base within the Qualibrate project. Now, apart from creating the sequencing of the business process documents, which can be created by non-technical users, right? So we consider ourselves a no-code or low-code type of platform. So without an experienced user, you have the ability to already contribute to the content and knowledge base of your project. So this is the result. So we capture not only the sequence of the steps, but also we create a visualization of your steps so you can navigate back and forth. And very important is that you can see that we also highlight the specific controls of the application. So you might already think about it, but this can be very useful to produce training materials and end user instructions. And we also have capabilities to give access to the users to virtual simulations of the specific processes, even when the system is not available. Additionally, a recorder, what it does, and this is really more for test engineer type of roles, we capture technical information on the underlying application technology, which is going to help our automation engine to automatically execute these activities. So this is actually a key concept behind Qualibrate, because we don't generate an automated test script as a separate deliverable. We just basically instrument the digital document with the right technical information, so you can actually drive it automatically with our automation engine. So we don't create two separate things. It's all cohesive into the same unit. So that's also a very important thing to know. One of the things that I also mentioned is the ability to maintain data. And as you can see here, on every single step, we also have, for instance, some parameter names that help us to data drive the flow. So essentially what you see here is the model of the specific transaction about the sequencing of the steps and how the process will go from start to end. But we also create data bindings behind the steps, so we can data drive it with different combinations of data. And this is where we have the concepts of data sets. So if I go to my data sets tab, you can see that by default, we create an out-of-the-box data set, which we call, by the way, default. If I open this data set, you can see that I have my tasks on the left side, so I can navigate from one task to another. And on the right side, you can see that I have all the steps for that specific task. And this is where you have the ability to maintain the specific data for that specific step. So this is very powerful, because if I want, for instance, in this case, I created a sales order for this specific sales organization. I know that this sales organization, it's in the US, but for example, if I want to add coverage for this specific unit into a sales organization in Germany, I can basically duplicate my data set. So I can say German sales org. And when I create that, I automatically create a second data set, which basically means that I extended my coverage of my specific building block to a second business unit. And if I go to the specific data, this is where I can change the sales organization to 5. Let's imagine that it's 5,000 for Germany. So by a couple of clicks, this specific building block has coverage for 2 different sales organizations and different locations. And you can do the same for your accounts regions. You can do the same for plants. You can do the same for materials. So essentially, Qualibrate provides a data-driven, model-based application for testing. Very useful sometimes for customers as well is that you, as much as you can maintain the data directly here, which is very flexible, and you need only a web browser to be able to do so. So you can maintain this information like this, right? Very simply. You can also have the ability to export this into an Excel format, right? And by doing so, you will also create an Excel file that can also be maintained by your business users in case they do not have a Qualibrate license, of course. But if they do have a Qualibrate license, they can basically come in and edit everything in there. One of the things that is very useful as well on the export is that you can do a bulk edit of that specific Excel, and you can import it back into Qualibrate. And you can also create different iterations and different loops as well as part of it. So lastly, on the data sets, one of the things that you can see is that I'm maintaining a very simple value here. So 5,000 is just a simple value. But we also recognize that sometimes you want to randomize certain specific functions, or you want to generate today's date, for instance, dynamically. So you have the ability to go to more advanced capabilities for the, let's say, the specific parameter value. And this is where you will have a little bit more advanced features, like running a JavaScript function to generate that dynamic data value. So you can literally put a JavaScript standard function in there to generate a random number or a serial number, or maybe put today's date plus 30 days. So we have some really advanced capabilities in that. And in our help center, we also offer some predefined snippets, right, for the customers to paste. So if you don't have JavaScript experience, which we expect you won't have, you have the ability to copy paste these to generate the data dynamically. So I'm gonna close this. And this is basically the connection between the data sets and the steps themselves. So at this moment, we have captured the sequence of the steps. We have captured the, let's say, the data sets and everything. And now this is where it gets, your flow gets to put into the game, because you have the ability to run this flow either automatically if you're running automated regression, manually if you're gonna run a user acceptance cycle, or as a training simulation if you wanna onboard a user into your project and the system is not available. So if I run this manually, I'm gonna show you some couple of cool features that we have. I'm gonna choose my default data set, by the way, just for demo purposes. And you have the ability to also choose which data set you wanna run this specific test. Like if I hit the run button, you can see that we show the manual tester. And the manual tester, what it basically does, 1 second. So what it basically does is that it shows you the chapters of the process and also the steps within the chapters. And because it's a manual test, you have the ability to pass, fail, skip, but we also have some really cool features in here. Like for instance, if I click this settings button, it basically means that it does it for me. Because we already have the technical information of the application under test, we have the ability to semi-automatically launch that specific step. Now, very useful for transformation initiatives, especially if you're implementing the level of change that Fiori demands, S4HANA demands. We see that the ways of working for S4HANA changed dramatically from the previous version to the new one. So we believe that if you're running a user acceptance cycle and your key users are not really acquainted with the application under test, you can run this type of features like the show me feature. It's gonna show the user interactively on the application where they need to perform the activity. Not only we can do this interactively by, I hope you can see it guys in the screen, but it's highlighting the specific control that the user needs to interact with. But we also, of course, give them the screenshots, right? So visualize representation of what they need to do. And of course, they can do the do it for me as well, right? And if you execute the step manually, you can basically just mark it as passed. And I think I did this. Oh. And let's say that I can mark this everything as well. If I failed it, I can also fail the step, and I can basically go to the application and then exit. And I'm going to show you that for this specific manual test, you have an execution log that basically is the audit trail of everything that happened in the system. So you can drill down into the specific, let's say, steps, and you can see that some of the steps have been executed automatically, but also some I have executed manually. And for those steps where we can capture a screenshot, we capture a screenshot at runtime. So you see exactly what happened on that specific thing, that specific step. Since this process has been failed, I also have the ability to generate the defect. As soon as when I do that, I automatically open a window where I'm going to add all the steps that I took in order to get to that specific failure. So this is very important because we pre-populate the description of the defect with the steps that I conducted and the data, so that the developers have the ability to reproduce that defect very easily. So issue with SO creation, for instance, right? If I create that defect, I basically not only create the defect, but I also create a relationship between my flow and the defects. So we have a traceability analysis capability, also using our dashboards capability as well. So this is our manual testing capability, but of course, the interesting part is how can we run this automatically? So very similar to the manual testing, we run automatically. I can decide to run different data sets. I'm gonna run my default one, by the way. And very important from an automated perspective is we have the concept of adapters, which means that I can run my test in parallel in different devices. If I have 5 virtual machines, like for instance, we have customers like Heineken where they have deployed our execution agents in different virtual machines, you can dedicate executions on all these different virtual machines in an unattended basis. So from an automation perspective, it's very handy. So here what I'm going to do is that I'm going to run my process automatically. So again, we don't generate an automated test script. We don't generate code. We don't ask the test engineers to put an automated test script for us. what we do is that we read the latest version of the digital document and we basically run it automatically for the user. So this is the power behind Qualibrate, because business users have the ability to be able to do this, right? Which is very powerful, we believe. And basically this is where it stops. And again, I will go to my logs, and this is where let me just refresh this, and you can see that the process has passed. We provide a summary on the header of the, let's say, of the flow log, but you can also drill down into the specific details. So we keep a very close look on the timestamps, on the data that has been put into the system. And this is basically your audit trail of everything that happened. When I save my sales order, oh, 1 second, guys, having connection issues. Yeah. So you can see that I'm storing a value here. My sales order that is being saved is the 2207, and you can see a screenshot specifically on the 2207, and also the verifications, of course. So you can see that we do an assertion of what the application just did. Just to jump a little bit into the scenarios, right? Because I show you the building blocks, but I'm gonna go into some examples of the scenarios that I have put together. So you can see here, if I go to the sales order processing for non-stock material, this is where we have the concept of the scenarios, right? So all of these lines that you see here are the building blocks that will be put together to represent an end-to-end flow. In this case, what we are doing in this specific scenario is that we are launching an Fiori application, then which is the create sales order in Fiori. Then we launch the outbound delivery creation app, and then we create that delivery from a sales order, and then we do the goods issue, and then we create the billing documents. So to show you a little bit of an audit trail of what that happened, you can see here that as opposed to tracking the audit trail of a specific flow, we track it end to end. So you can see that we launch the Fiori application here. And then you can see that we also capture the screenshots there. We create a sales order. So we fill up the order header also in Fiori, right? So all this information is put together into an end-to-end audit trail, which is also kind of handy from an auditing perspective. And to show you a little bit how easy it is to maintain, let's say, end-to-end flows, I'm gonna open one here that I have that goes delivery creation on SAP. This basically creates a delivery on SAP. But I also have the ability to jump into Salesforce. And if I go into more details about this flow, you can see that I can add my delivery into Salesforce as well. So if I open the details of the screenshot of this specific recording, you can see that I'm going into Salesforce. I'm opening a specific account. And then I'm going to log an activity and basically said that a delivery has been posted from SAP. One of the things that we have as part of this scenario is that if I go to the details, you can see that the purpose of this scenario is to create a delivery. And one of my prerequisites is to have an existing open sales order. And from a regression testing perspective, you have two options. Either you manually generate the sales order and then basically create the delivery and run this automatically, or I can actually, or because I already created a recording for creating a sales order, I can basically add it at the very beginning, right? So if I add this specific building block, the one that I just created, and I just drag it all the way to the top, then I basically created now a fully end-to-end process that creates a sales order in GUI. It creates a delivery on, I can go into the details of the delivery creation in Fiori. So you can see the recording in Fiori, right? It basically looks for the sales document, which is the sales order. And then it will go to Salesforce and will basically log the delivery that I just posted in that specific account. So this is essentially the representation of an end-to-end flow, not only on specific on SAP, but touches also different technologies like GUI, web, and also Salesforce specifically. I would like to open another session for Q&A. So can we get some questions? I think we have some in the...
Sure, we have some question in the Q&A module. Shall we start with them, or anyone wants to raise their hands as a specific question about this module that Alan just demoed? Okay, let's go into the, okay, we have Martin. Martin, yeah. I'm gonna mute you. Hello, Martin. Hi, Martin. All right.
Oh, I think we have some technical issues with Martin.
Yeah. Martin, you can actually, if you're not able to say it live, you can actually type your question in the module, so we will answer it. So we actually have Kishore. Kishore is asking, does it support in automate non-SAP web application, for example, homegrown SFDC portals, etc.?
So like I mentioned before, we do support any type of application that runs in a web browser. Of course, as long as you don't have any funky like frameworks like Flash or Silverlight or ActiveX. If it's a standard HTML, we can basically support it. And this also includes homegrown applications, definitely.
Thank you. And then the next one, do you have a solution to achieve DevOps for SAP?
Very good question. The answer is yes. One of the things that we also have as part of our strategy is that whatever you build in the content, whatever content you build in your Qualibrate project, we have interfaces where we can actually launch automated test scripts for continuous delivery pipelines. And we actually have a solution that not only looks at functional test automation, but also goes all the way to the left with unit testing with some partners, which helps us to have an ability to have an early defect detection framework together with unit testing, integration testing, and with the same delivery pipeline, you have the ability to launch Qualibrate scripts to do your business level of regression, and everything integrated into one pipeline, which is fully automated. So the answer is yes, and we'll be more than happy to share more details with you because we have some solution briefs about that.
Indeed, if you also want to have a look at it, feel free to ask and we'll show you the solution brief, as Alan was saying. Okay, we have Martin, who actually typed his question. Can Qualibrate also link to tools in an agile environment like Jira? You already mentioned it before, but if we wanted to specify it a bit.
Yeah, actually, look, our strategy is, of course, having an enterprise integration layer because we believe that to really release the power of quality, you don't have to put everything into one single platform. You have to integrate with other platforms available in the market. So our strategy is to have an open integration layer. We are about to publish, you can actually see in our public roadmap, the timelines on where we're going to publish our two-way integration with Jira, which is planned this year. And not only with Jira, because I would say Jira is the most heavily adopted agile management tool in the market. But since we have an open integration layer, we can also do the same with tools like Write, with Trello and things like that. It all comes down to defining the use cases and the level of information we want to share across the platforms. And for Jira, we have it well defined. It's just about to be developed very soon.
Cool, thank you. And latest question is from Gerben. Can you link requirements as listed in, for example, the blueprint document to specific test steps? This to determine the coverage of requirements.
Yeah, great question. And yeah, like I mentioned, or I think I mentioned in the beginning, this comes into the concept of an integration with Solution Manager, indeed. So very similar to what you saw in the demonstration that I show you a related tab where we have the relation of the defects. We are planning also to integrate requirements, whether they come from Jira or from Solution Manager Blueprint. So you can have a traceability analysis of test case assets versus requirements. And basically using the dashboards to also add coverage analysis capabilities as well. We're working on that.
Cool. Actually, Gerben has got another question, which is SAP IBP uses Excel as front end next to Fiori. Does Qualibrate also work with Excel?
If you mean that we can drive Excel automatically, the answer is no. We don't support the Windows protocol yet. But if it means that you need to upload Excel files through a Fiori application, then that is supported because we basically drive it from the user interface from web, where you can select the file that you want to upload. If you want to do, for instance, SAP does a lot of bulk processing by uploading Excel sheets. That is definitely supported, and we have customers that actually do that, like Province in Holland, for instance.
Yeah, Herbert is specifying that it's about an Excel add-in.
I don't think so. I don't think we support it, but we can go into more details to understand exactly what the question is.
We can actually follow up after this webinar with you to go
Correct.
more into details.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's pretty much all. Actually, there's another one. Do we have time for another one?
I have time. I hope everyone else has time as well.
Yeah. So based on your experience, how long does it take for a customer to implement Qualibrate?
That's a really good question. Of course, it depends, but we have a very streamlined onboarding process. We have customers, for instance, we have a success story with a customer in New Zealand where we have managed in a process of 4 weeks, not only to onboard the users, and in this case, we onboarded a total of about 7 business users, like warehouse managers, sales managers, etc. We did the onboarding in 3 days in total to get them ready to do recording, process capture, and test automation in 3 days. And in 4 weeks, we were able to cover 95% of their business coverage from a process perspective. And that meant that we built around almost like 100 end-to-end scenarios composed by a total of 600 transactions, ranging from Fiori apps and GUI apps as well. So 4 weeks to have a full coverage, which is mainly driven by business folks. To be honest, that was a very, very nice experience. And we see customers doing it even quicker, some others depending on their expertise, of course, mostly on SAP, do it a little bit slower, but the training and onboarding, it basically takes a week or less. So great question.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. I think that's pretty much it. Do you want to have a recap, anything you missed, or we can end this webinar?
Just a very quick recap. So look, guys, the reason we created Qualibrate is to empower teams to be able to document faster. And this means that if you have the knowledge in the heads of the business process analysts, we want to empower those users to be able to participate in the documentation process. Action Novel is one of the success stories that we have where they have, let's say, made the process of documentation much more efficient by a factor of 7. So we're very happy to see that. Customers really adopting this type of way of working. We want to empower users to also test more in a more smart way. You don't have to be a testing engineer to be able to test. We want to empower you with simple solutions so you can be able to test smarter. So for instance, PVH, which is the owner of Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein, has been able to reduce the time and resources 80% by using tools like this to be able to test large volumes of data as part of their project implementations. And last but not least, we want to make sure that you can learn easier. Not only learn automation and quality assurance easier, but also whenever you deploy changes into production, we want to make sure that your users are also able to use the system. 60% of our users are actually using our platform to create training materials for their users. And that helps them to really increase the adoption of their business applications in production as well. So this is pretty much it, guys. That's a recap. So Martina, thanks a lot. You want to close?
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Alan, for your time. Thank you for taking the time to participate. Tomorrow, I will send you the recording on this really interesting session, so you can actually share it with your colleagues. Also, if you have any specific needs, as for example, Herbing, we're going to contact you, but feel free to reach out to us if you have any specific questions. Thanks for your time. Thank you, Alan, and have a nice day.
Have a fantastic day, everyone. Cheers.